Pokernewsdotcom.
Against Pokernopoulos.
Love that guy, by the way. Nicest guy I'll find.
So it starts.
Can't say his name for shit.
The raise from Pokernopoulos pre-flop.
So it's been 3-bet big blinds.
By win on the button.
She calls button, so she opened button. He 3-bets big blind. She calls.
So King, Queen, 9, 2 spade flop. Action goes check, check. Turn card. Queen of Hearts pairing the board.
The snap checks are addictive.
And after Pokernopoulos checks, we're in bet. There's a call, and the river card is the ace of spades. Straighty, flushy, paired board, check. Bet.
This is never a bluff. This is also never a bluff.
There's stacks of blue there. He's got her covered.
Maybe it is.
Clearly a big decision.
There's a reason I chose this hand.
I like the intense camera angles, the zooming in, changing.
Dramatic zoom.
And she folds. Ace, Queen.
Full house.
What? But that's the top of your range.
Pokernopoulos shows aces. That's a full house.
Oh, no.
One inspired fold.
Crazy.
Serious.
Crazy talk. So what's going on? What is happening? So before I say anything else, before I analyze this, I just want to say, God damn, I love poker. It's so fun to see this kind of stuff. When you think you've seen it all, I mean, you just see another sick hand and it makes so many people go, whoa. Gets loads of people debating about, like, loads of people on Twitter being like, it's terrible. And loads of people being like, no, it's not. And for me, analyzing it can kind of kill the fun a bit. Because, you know, it's like analyzing a joke, kind of. You get down to the nitty-gritty of why something is funny, and by the end, it's not really that funny. And this is just like, it's so sick. Someone just folded a boat in a 3-bet pot in the 6th spot in the 25k, and she was so confident she folded it face up, and the other guy actually had a bigger boat. It's crazy. No one makes that fold. And I just, you know, if you're out there and you're grinding poker, please take these moments and just find that inner 2NL player in you when you first started playing poker. When you watch those kind of hands, you're like, oh, that's so sick. That's so sick. And never lose that spark of passion that you have for poker, because it's in all of you, and that's why you're poker players, or that's why you play poker on the side, because we love the game. And this is one of the things that we should just take a moment to remind us how awesome that is. I know that sounds like a self-help book, but my gosh, it's just so fun. Anyways, let's get into the analysis. So we get a 3-bet from Chrononodonopoulos. Lovely guy. Yeah, 3-bets big blind versus button. First of all, by the way, it's a 25k, but that doesn't mean it's going to be a tough tournament. It's actually the biggest 25k that's ever existed. Kudos for Stars. They got over 1,000 people, which is insanity. It's going to be a very, very weak field in comparison to other 25ks. Probably, I don't know, like nearer like a 2k tournament, kind of that level. There are going to be so many weaker professionals that are taking shots just because it's meant to be one of those weaker tournaments. Quite a lot of recreational players as well, so don't think too much into how big the button is. And she calls the button. She's going to have pretty wide range. He, on the other hand, is going to have pretty tight range. People don't tend to 3-bet out the big blind too often. The reason for that is, let's say they have a hand that they might choose to 3-bet, like say 10-7 suited. People, they know that it will be a profitable call, so they'll lean towards calling instead of taking one of those hands to 3-bet. Whereas if you're in a small blind, a lot of hands, they aren't very profitable to call because the big blind can squeeze you so liberally, or you have to go 3-way. So people tend to 3-bet a lot more out the small blinds, and barely at all 3-bet bluffing out the big blind. Until you get to like the very, very, very good players. But that's just a general tendency you'll find. So we get 2 snap checks on King, Queen, 9, 2 spades, and then Queen on the turn from Chrononodonopoulos. And let's just range that quickly. So the snap check, I think, is really indicative of someone that hasn't got air, especially when he snap checks twice. If he has something just like 6-7 of diamonds or whatever, he's going to at least consider bluffing at some point because, you know, his hand isn't any good. So when he snap checks, that's really indicative of someone that's not folding to a bet. It's indicative of someone that has showdown value because he hasn't put any thought into it. And this is where you can definitely read into timing tells. So what kind of hands can he have? So when he 3-bets pre, I can put him on ace jack, ace 10, ace queen, ace king, and aces, kings, queens, jacks, 10s, maybe some king, queen suited. That's basically it. I might have forgotten 1 or 2 hands. I don't think so. So when he checks the flop, we can narrow that down. That's not going to be queens. It definitely can be aces and ace king. It can be kings maybe, and it can definitely be ace queen. When he checks the turn, however, ace queen is out of there. I think the rest of them are still in. Kings possibly. Aces definitely can be in there. And I think, man, that might be it. This is why it's kind of just like, it ruins the fun of a hand when you really analyze it, because you're just like, well, that's kind of the only hands he has, but we'll get there. Get to the river first before we talk about it. So she bets, and at this point, it just doesn't feel like it's going to be a bluff very often, you know, like why wouldn't she, like if she has a flush draw, why wouldn't she bet the flop? It's very possible, but it just doesn't feel like he's going to be folding very often, and she would have to take some really like low equity hands, like no equity hands, to try and turn into a bluff. She goes pretty small as well, I think. Yeah, that seems super small. I didn't realize. So river ace. Now the worst hand that Chronononopoulos can have here is, by the way, Greek name's hilarious, is ace king, and this is obviously not game theory approved, but this is just my exploitative read on the situation. But he really doesn't have any non-good hands, especially when the river's an ace. She now bets a lot bigger than she did on the turn. Again, it's very indicative of a value hand. It's just never going to be a bluff when he can have aces, and ace king is very, very likely from her perspective. He now shoves. I don't know if he snap shoved. I don't know if he took his time because it's edited. And now let's just take a minute to imagine you're, I don't know what her name is, sitting on the button. You have ace queen. Let's think through the hands that your opponent can have. And there are a lot of people on Twitter going a bit mental about this, being like, oh, she's at the top of her range, how could you fold? And there are definitely a lot of game theory oriented, very good players that are going to be thinking the same thing. Like, oh, if you fold this, then you're very exploitable. It's like, this situation ain't ever going to come up ever again. If you're her versus him and this specific board and this specific, poker doesn't work like that. Unless you're playing cash games where you're playing the same people for like online, like 4 tabling all day, every day, and then eventually the same spots start coming up and you can group different kind of spots together and okay, they fold this too much in this specific situation. You get like tens of thousands of hands against them. Then you can start making those kind of exploitative adjustments. But one hand, get the fuck out of here. Nobody's convincing me that someone's going to exploit me after seeing me fold one hand. Like, I'll remember what they saw as well, as much as they'll remember it. So it's, yeah, anyway, let's think about it from her perspective. You have ace queen. We don't think it's a bluff. It just doesn't look like a bluff. It looks like she can have ace queen very often. The way she played it, it really does scream kind of ace queeny, or maybe a flush, but they're just zero bluffs. I just can't think of a single bluff that she would have unless she had zero equity it. And it just doesn't make sense. I mean, if he does have ace king, he'd think about calling. Why would he think about shoving into a boat? Like, people just don't fold boats. So let's just say it's never a bluff. Now let's think about the value hands he can have. He can have ace queen. Maybe, but he didn't bet the turn and he did snap check the turn. So it's like ace queen is pretty much out of there. He can maybe have kings, although kings will probably bet the flop. So let's say there's 3 combinations of kings, but they bet the flop. I don't know, like let's say at least 80% of the time. So now you have only only a fifth of 3 combinations of what are they called? Of kings. And let's take aces. Aces probably play the way that he's played it almost every time. I think checking the flop's very standard. I think checking the turn is pretty standard. And I think checking the river is definitely very standard. And 3-betting pretty extremely standard. So that's still one combination of aces. So let's say less than one combination of kings, once we say that he doesn't play kings very often, but still a whole combination of aces. That isn't much that you lose to. And this is what people say, like, oh, how can you fold if you only lose to like 1 or 2 combinations? Well, the thing is, if there are 0 combinations of bluffs, or like 0.1 combinations of bluffs, if you can kind of maybe find a way that he's going to play ace king like that, but so unlikely. And then you have like 1 or 2 combinations of value hands. That is a huge ratio from value to bluff, and I think it's an incredible fold. I think she was very confident in her read. I think she had very good reason. I think the fact that she showed it to the camera, I mean, folding a boat on TV is like, it can be a very embarrassing thing if you just get shown like a flush or something. But she was confident. Look at that. A couple of people are calling this an angle because she didn't say fold. She said yet, but it's definitely not an angle. When you throw your hand in the middle like that, it's definitely a fold. And yeah, I just had to comment on this because it's such a sick thing, such a sick hand, and quite a few like GTO-ish kind of, you know, not super great professionals were commenting, being like, oh, it's really bad fold, you can't be results oriented. It's like, no, it's not. It's sick. Don't take the fun out of the game. And yeah, I hope you guys had as much fun watching it as I did.